Today's adventure is through the Tarkine in the west coast of Tasmania. I started at Waterfall and I drove to Corrina and then north on the Western Explorer to Arcadia River. Enjoy. I'm walking down to Philosopher's Falls in the Tarkine, not too far from Waterfall. I thought I'd tell you my family connections with this area and these waterfalls. This waterfall is named Philosopher's Falls after Philosopher Smith. Philosopher Smith was a man who discovered tin at Mount Bishop, which is near the town of Waterfall. And he set up a very successful tin mining industry there in the late 1800s, which ran through to the early 1900s. He had a friend. His friend was named Mr. Norton Smith. His first name will come back to me, James Norton Smith. James Norton Smith bought a piece of property off my great-great-grandfather, William Peck Margats. That piece of property was opposite where I used to live in Flowerdale. Mr. Norton Smith was a very industrious man with his connections to Philosopher Smith and Mount Bishop Mine. He built a railway line. He built a railway line from Emu Bay through to Mount Bishop. He also built another one from Flowerdale, where we lived, up to a coal mine in Prealina. He also started the Emu Bay port, which is today the Port of Burnie. He was involved with the Van Diemen's Land Company and Table Cape Butter and Cheese. He was a local government representative and pretty much built Burnie. So that's my connection. Thought I'd share that. It's a bit of a walk down to the falls. I hope there's some water. Now, this waterfall is named after Philosopher Smith because he discovered it. He was quite the explorer in his quest to find minerals on the west coast of Tasmania. You only have to look around here to imagine how hard it actually was to come in here and explore. It might be easier today. There are tracks, but there wouldn't have been a track back then. One thing to note is Philosopher Smith's mine made a lot of money. In the early 1900s, it had made $180 million. In today's money, that would be an astronomical amount. But in that time, it was an insane amount of money. Now, I thought this was just part of the track, but it's actually a water race. Delivered water from the Arcadia River, which is where we're standing now, pretty much the beginning of the Arcadia River. And it went down to the Magnate Mine. How cool. Look at the work they put into this. This is the lengths they went to here on the west coast to get valuable minerals out. Again, Parks and Wildlife have done a pretty damn good job here of putting infrastructure in so that we can come down here and enjoy Philosopher's Falls, named after Philosopher Smith, the discoverer of tin in this area. And we are in luck. There's a beautiful amount of water falling down Philosopher's Falls today, and it was definitely worth the hike down here. And on my way back now, following the water race that sent water down past Philosopher's Falls to the mining town of Magnet. That mining town and the friend of Philosopher Smith was a very well-known man called Renison Bell. There is still a mine on the west coast of Tasmania that carries his name, the Renison Bell mine. This track states that it's an hour and a half return, but if you're here and you're doing it, in all reality it's 45 minutes return. So don't be put off by the hour and a half hike. It really is a lot easier than it sounds. When I walked in here, I smelt perfume, and I just thought someone with perfume had walked past me. But now that I'm exiting the track, I'm realising it's not someone's perfume, it's the forest's perfume. The smell in here is just magical. I'm here at the tailings dam of the Savage River iron ore mine. Like most mines down here on the west coast of Tasmania, inventive solutions had to be invented to try and get the product out of the area. The area is so remote and so wild that clever systems had to be invented. The system that they invented here at Savage River was to pipe it out. So you can see the pile over there of ore. What they do is they crush it and they put it in a pipeline, and then they pump it to Port Ladder. From there, there's a plant that solidifies it back into iron ore pellets, and then goes along a conveyor belt on a jetty that is really long and goes all the way out to Bass Strait. And from that moment, it's put on a ship and it's exported out. This is called living the dream. Well, I got myself out of my first big bog. This bit wasn't so hard. It was this hole that did me in. Next, it was time to explore the historic gold mining town of Corrina. Corrina was first established in 1894 for a gold rush. The river also acted as a port for Huon. Ships could enter from the sea, although it was a treacherous effort to do so. The town actually had an enormous population, many pubs, and was eventually superseded by the port of Strawn on Macquarie Harbour, as it was a safer port. This is the punt that goes across the Pieman River at Corrina. I chose to drive around it, going up the Pieman Road past the hydro dam schemes, and then down through Waratah and Savage River to get to this spot. I wanted to see all of the scenery, but the crossing on the ferry is definitely the quickest and easiest way to go. Next, I boarded the Arcadia II for my cruise up the Pieman River. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time, and I have to say, this exceeded my expectations. Sometimes you build things up in your mind, and in reality they're not quite as fabulous as what you'd think. This is one thing that did not disappoint. I truly enjoyed this day. The cruise travels downstream from Corrina for about 22 kilometres before you pull up and reach the seaside shack community of Pieman Heads. You have an hour and a half at the Heads to go and explore the beach, talk to the lovely people that live in what they'll tell you is paradise, and I have to say, on a day like today, it was paradise. I loved being here. It's a great place to come and visit. This is the entrance to the Pieman River here on the west coast of Tasmania. If you're down this part of the world, don't miss out on the cruise that comes out here from Corrina. It really is a magical experience. I'll definitely not forget this day in a hurry. You can actually access Pieman Heads from Granville Harbour. There is a four-wheel drive track. You end up driving down the beach. I have to say, this town is a bit full of rev heads. You'll find lots of those ATV recreational vehicles down here. I truly hope one day they get banned. They really do destroy the atmosphere. This is the junction of the White and Pieman River. It's the end of my day down here at Corrina. It's been the most magical day. The cruise out to Pieman's Head was simply spectacular. And as you can see, I picked the very best day to come to this part of the west coast. Barely a cloud in the sky. Just amazing. I highly recommend someone come and visit this spot. Truly magical. The drive up the Western Explorer from Corrina is a bit of a rocky road. Be prepared for 75 kilometres of gravel road, but it can be done in a Corolla. What do we have here? Mine, watercourse, or what? Ah, looks like the mine. Oh, wow, how cool. Might have to turn torch on. This is Balfour mine. I wonder how far you can actually get in here. I'd be guessing you can get in a fair way. How very cool. Okay, the old mining town of Balfour. Let's see if we can go and find out something. Didn't know it was a kind of shack community up here. Wow. As you can see from this map, Balfour was quite a substantial tin mining town in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Now I'm in the old mining town of Balfour on west coast Tasmania in the Tarkine, and it's interesting exploring this 1900 tin mine. This is the cemetery. The cemetery was started because typhoid broke out in 1910 and they buried people in this hillside. Let's go have a look. In loving memory of Sylvia Iris MacArthur. Died 5th of November 1912. William Wallace Faulkner Murray died on the 4th of November 1912. Who do we have down here? Dr. G. H.C. Waldenton. There's another one down here. It's pretty interesting there. They're literally buried into the side of a hill here. Now there is really not much left of this town, but the cemetery, surprisingly, is pretty substantial. This one must have died from typhoid. 3rd of January 1910. Wilkinson. Now I guess this was the really and truly mine. You can't get in there. They definitely got this one locked off. But I can kind of see why. I can already see falling bits of shale. Yeah, actually don't see shale like that much here in Tasmania. Boy, that's a very tight hole. Like even a short man would be crawling through there. Wow, you've only got to see the tailings to realise actually how much they dug out of that hole. I do love a good old ghost town, and Balfour in West Coast Tasmania in the middle of the Tarkine certainly does not disappoint. Okay, it's time to move on. Let's 4-wheel drive out of here. Okay, so I am at the end of the Western Explorer Road, otherwise known as Norfolk Road. I've been wanting to do this for 20 years, and previous trips I've missed it because the whole place has been on fire, or bridges have still been burnt from the fire, or it just hadn't recovered from the fire. So I can finally say I've done what the locals here call the road to nowhere. As my father would call it, the Compo Road. And other relatives of mine will call this Bob Hawke's Road. Anyway, it's been a wonderful adventure. If you're in Tasmania, the Tarkine is definitely worth a look.